Hello, everybody. This is Mike Goldstein, stickers of the C.A.N Report, coming at you again with an awesome podcast for tonight. Something I'm very, very passionate about. I have Tracy McCart with us tonight. She is the wife of Kevin McCart, and she is a co-founder of the Fire Wife Life and also a co-author of an article that she wrote with Kathy Edwards of Todd Edwards. So, Tracy, thank you so much for being on here tonight. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
Little disclaimer, I guess, that Kathy cannot join us this evening. She is under the weather, so I'm speaking for both of us tonight. So
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. I had such a great conversation with Kathy earlier. It's such a shame that she's not feeling well, but I totally get it. You know,
yeah,
health comes first, family comes
yeah.
first. So, Tracy McCart, I'm going to go right into your bio here. It's beautiful. I love what you got. Tracy McCart, she spent 28 years in education, having taught elementary, middle, and high school throughout her career. Tracy held multiple leadership roles in the school districts that she was employed, in addition to being the president of several educational organizations. Tracy brings a wealth of talent to her position as co-founder and managing director of Fire Wife Life, and her vision for the organization has been a leading force in its forward motion and quick growth. Tracy is a graduate of Central Methodist University, where she earned a Master of Education degree. Tracy is a proud fire wife of 21 years. She is married to Kevin McCart, who was in the fire service for 21 years as both a lieutenant and captain. Currently, Kevin is the South Central Regional Manager of Keyhose. Tracy and Kevin reside in the Kansas City area. As a leader facilitator for the Fire Wife Life, Tracy will present the message of community, togetherness, support, and inclusion. So many wives feel isolated from their spouse's job, family, and their civilian friends that don't understand their lifestyle or the unique challenges that they face. In bringing the message of Fire Wife Life forward, she encourages women to feel comfortable in asking for help, speaking their needs to other wives, and not being afraid to be a part of the fire family community. Simultaneously, the message and navigation of the importance of seeing one's own worth and having one's own identity outside of fire spouse is imperative to having a successful marriage and healthy family dynamic. That's awesome. I really love the fact that you put in here one's own identity outside of fire spouse. That's, because it's always the wife,
Yeah.
this is my fire wife. This is, and you're just having to be dragged along, and you end up not having like your own real
Yeah.
identity of who you are. Yeah, my husband's a firefighter, and that's all you know. All his friends are firefighters, and all the wives are, and then you end up not having like your
Yeah,
own.
as you know, and as your wife can, I'm sure, attest, the fire family is a wonderful, wonderful thing, but it is very consuming.
Yeah.
Fire takes over a lot of your life. And if you let it, it will consume you to the point where you resent it. You don't just take it in and embrace it. So a lot of women that we talk to in our Fire Wife Life conferences and retreats do say, I love my fire family. I know, firefighters that would do anything for our kids and do anything for us, but it is overpowering sometimes. And so, women do lose their identity in the fire service
Yeah.
because of what you do.
Well, you think about it too. We just had a birthday party for my daughters yesterday, and my father-in-law is there. He's a retired firefighter, and another friend of mine was there. He's currently a call firefighter for the town I live in. And what do you think we did as soon as that all of us are together, and we start talking fire stuff, right?
Fair.
And everybody else is kind of excluded. We got our own little world. We're talking about fire stuff. We're talking about how crappy this thing is, or good this thing is. And the other friends are there, but they can't really connect to us because we keep talking about, and we don't even know we're doing it. And
Right.
I sometimes catch myself when I'm in those environments and I see new people, and us as firefighters are talking in our own little group, and then sometimes I will stop myself and try to bring that other outsider in, because I feel
Yeah.
so guilty that they're not included in our group because they have no idea what we're talking about.
Kathy and I call them the general population.
Gen Pop.
Gen Pop. The Gen Pop just doesn't understand us.
No, they don't. They don't. Not absolutely not. And it's and then of course, as you become closer in that fire life, though, all the fire wives become best friends. And so that's all they know is that general world. So then you have parties and then other people from the outside. So you have to try to keep an
Yes.
open mind of, okay, we can't all be talking about, so and this person and that person. Can you believe what they did? And then
Yeah.
the general population is standing on the sidelines going, I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, and they don't get
So
it. They don't get a lot of what the wives go through. I mean, I've had general population friends, especially being a teacher. I have a lot of wonderful teacher friends, and but they didn't understand the lifestyle.
yeah.
Being a fire wife, they just didn't understand. What do you mean you're home alone for Christmas? What do you mean like that, what do you mean your husband's gone for 48 hours? Like they don't get it. And
Hmm.
when they're around long enough, they start to get it, but they still don't understand it completely. So, yeah.
Are you still a teacher? Or are you done teaching?
No, I am retired. I took early retirement to focus on fire wife life full
Wow.
time.
All right.
So,
I like
yeah.
that. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
How
I
long were you a
figured
teacher
28
for?
years was enough.
28. Okay. So 28 years.
Yeah.
That's enough teaching. Yeah. I don't blame you on that one.
I do go back, like when we moved to Kansas City, we're actually in Lee Summit, Missouri, and we're close to a little town called Pleasant Hill. And I have been subbing there. Once you're a teacher, you never really leave
Sure.
education, and you miss the kid. Like I miss the kids. I don't miss all the admin stuff. And just like, Kevin misses the fire, but he doesn't miss all the other stuff. It's the same
Hmm.
thing in teaching. But I do go back on my schedule and sub every once in a while just to see the kids.
Oh,
So,
nice. That's very cool. That's awesome. Now, how did you meet Kathy?
okay. So Todd Edwards he has his own training company, Fire Life Training, and he travels all over extensively and
Hmm.
mostly he concentrates on like hands-on training because
Hmm.
he's awesome. And so Kevin started going to conferences. He was real into the job, and he wanted to just make their organization better, and he would go to all these things, and I would see Kathy in passing because I would like to travel, in the summer, especially. I wasn't working. So I would go with Kevin to some of these conferences, and Kathy would be there. And we knew each other, but not really until Kevin started doing some hands on work with Todd. So
Sure.
he would help Todd out at some of the conferences. And we were in Carolina Beach at First Due. They're now in Griffin, put on a wonderful conference there. And I was sitting in a bar.
Of course.
And during the day, I was bored. I had
It's
no one to
vacation.
talk to. I was like, I went down for lunch and, had a couple beer. And Todd pops his head in because it was really hot and humid. And him and Kevin kind of popped their heads into the bar. And they were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I don't know. I have nothing else to do." And Todd said, "Call my wife." And so he gives me Kathy's number. And I'm like, "Kathy, you know who I am, but I didn't have your number. Todd gave it to me. He said to invite you down for a couple drinks." And her response was, "Say less. I'll be there in a minute." And we literally talked all night long. Like
Wow.
it was that once we started actually like talking to each other instead of just in passing, we realized that, we were fast friends and had a lot in common, and just kind of went from there. And then Firewife Life kind of evolved from that. We were at CFT down in Pensacola with Kurt Isaacson, puts on a great thing down there, as you had mentioned. And we were all down there, and there was a bunch of wives actually at this one. And we were all sitting, we got a little get together. We were all sitting on a balcony at one of the rooms. We were like, "Meet us in whatever room." So we were all sitting there just talking. And we literally started a Facebook page called Firewife Life
Oh,
for
okay.
us
Yep.
to keep in contact with each other. So we knew who was going to what conference, when would we see each other again. Well, everybody started inviting other wives onto the page, and it really organically grew into this thing where people then started asking for advice. And like it, Kathy and I looked at each other one day and we thought we could really do something with this. Wives need support. wives, they want to talk to other fire wives. Like there's something here that we could
Hmm.
really roll with. And just very organically became what it is today with, over 3,000 people on the Facebook page. We do 2 events a year. We get
Wow.
invited to fire departments to talk to wives. So I just kind of grew from wives wanting to stay in touch. So
Wow, that's
yeah,
impressive. That really grew fast for you
it
guys.
did. Yeah,
That
because
is very
20, that was 2020. Yeah, no, 2021 maybe. No, 2020.
cool.
Yes, COVID. It was COVID.
Gotcha. It's
It was the year of COVID. Yeah.
the year of COVID, where friendships were made and hearts were
And
broken.
yes, bonds made during COVID.
Wow, that's impressive. You guys became quick friends,
Yes.
and did you bond real quickly because both husbands have shared these experiences,
Yeah.
and so you guys obviously lived
Yeah.
those same lives,
Yes.
and so you
Yeah.
really developed
Yes.
that bond?
Yeah. So, we talked about a lot of, things that Todd went through at being chief in Atlanta. We talked about a lot of things Kevin was going through in the St. Louis area, and we realized, and even with us doing our conferences and retreats, we weren't the only ones
Mhm.
experiencing some of the things that our guys struggle with. Wives really, they want to help their husbands, but they don't know how. And when their husband isn't happy in the fire service, when they're
Mhm.
so passionate about it, it kind of sparked us to write the article that you were referring to at the beginning of the podcast. It's something that a lot of wives are struggling with right now.
Yeah, yeah, and, the article that we're referring to is
Yeah.
"Navigating the Impact of Organizational Betrayal on Home Life: The Spouse's Perspective."
Yeah.
And again, that was written by Kathy Edwards and Tracy
Mhm.
McCart, and like I said, as soon as I read it, I felt it.
Yeah.
I haven't hit it with my struggles, and it was a 10-year struggle of living that life, and, of course, like you said, my wife lived that same life of me coming home pissed off,
Yeah.
angry, and, hating the thing that I love the most.
Well, and that's the thing. It's different when, the firefighter comes home and it was a bad call or it was a busy night or something like that. But when it's the job that they love so much that's making them upset, that's a whole different level of like, oh my God, what do I do? Like, you can talk to your firefighter after a bad call and kind of, if they're willing to talk, we that's a whole other issue.
Yep,
But there's things you can do, but when it's their passion that is making them so upset,
and
that's a
that's,
whole other animal.
and I've said that to my wife, and I've said it to others as well, is that I can take people spitting at me, I can take the most horrific scenes, I can I can pretty much take it all. They wanna call me an MFer on scene, they can call me any name they want. I don't take it personal. It's my job. It's what I signed up to do, and I'm gonna do it without judgment, and it's actually makes for a good laugh. When I when somebody personally attacks me, for a member of my department, puts either my reputation or my name at stake or personally insults me on the job that I'm doing, that's when I start taking it personal. And that's when it hits home. Like again, we all sign up for the job. We're gonna know we have to see some of the most horrific things and deal with some
Yeah.
of the most extreme circumstances. When you get back to the station, you don't expect to
Yes.
someone personally attack you
Right.
or personally attack your ethics or morals. And then that's when you take it home and you just can't shake it because you feel personally attacked. And,
Yeah.
and that's where I struggled. And like you said, your husband as well, and Todd, and many people, as I've been speaking openly about this, more people have come up to me and thanked me for talking about this because it's happening more often than we know. We have groups out there for people to talk to, right? Like you said, it's kind of a
Yeah.
struggle to get us to talk to people, but I don't think there's a lot of people who are able or trained to deal with what this environment is.
Right.
They're trained to be able to help with PTSD of sights, sounds, memories of some of the worst things to be able to for us to cope with that. But how do you handle someone who has PTSD from a chief or an officer or even a coworker who has personally attacked you, and you have to live with them over and
Right.
over again. In a way, it's like domestic violence, right? It's like spousal abuse, because that's our family and we trust in them, and we're supposed to have a different kind of relationship than we do with the, like you said, the general population.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I guess when we started putting this article together, I get one of the things you had mentioned it when we talked on the phone before, that you didn't have a name for it. Like, you
Hmm.
knew it was happening, but after you read this, you were like, oh, that's what it's called. I just don't want it to end up being like a buzzword, though.
Sure.
Like, if you don't get, like, it's a continual, like, so I was telling Kevin the other day, I said, I just don't want people to think, though, you know maybe they went for a promotion and they didn't get it the first time. That's not organizational betrayal. I don't want people to think because they didn't get time off approved, that's not organizational betrayal. Like,
Yeah.
it's time and time again, you feel like your organization has let you down for a multitude of different reasons, and they can look completely different. And Kevin has experienced completely different organizational betrayal.
I love that you said that, Tracy, to be honest with you, because there's a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can't just say, and I'll start off too with, you said that I don't want it to be a buzzword, and you're
Yeah.
100% accurate. It should not be a buzzword, but it gives me comfort that I actually
Yeah.
have a way to describe it, because it's so hard. Because, like, I think I was saying it to, I think I said it to you on the phone, and I said pardon my French, but my title for it was being fucked over. That was my
Yeah.
title.
Yeah.
That was my
That's
way to
exactly
describe it,
it.
right? So it's more of a PC way to put it, but it's definitely
Right.
not a buzzword. And I do love the way you put that, of you can't just give that organizational betrayal a name because, like you said, you didn't get your time off, or, I didn't get the hose that I wanted on the truck,
Right.
or, right. I wanted the hen nozzle and they didn't give it to me. So I'm betrayed by my organization.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful of that. And it's, if you've never dealt with it, then you really can't give it, you can't use that word, right? And like you said,
Right.
like, I think there's a fine line, and I think people understand that, who have lived that life and have dealt with those issues, I think can
Right.
feel that name. And that's why it stuck with me as soon as I read that article. I'm like, that's it. Is exactly what you put in the words, though, not just the title, but the way you guys wrote that article was exactly how I was feeling. And I actually had asked my wife, if she wanted to join us on this podcast, because, like, you're speaking from a spouse point of view, and my wife lived this issue with me, and I really wanted her to meet you and talk with you and share her experience, but she said absolutely not. So,
I get it. I get it.
and I don't blame her. Not everyone can do this. It is difficult. Not everyone can, speak freely about their emotions and experiences for everybody to rip apart, and, on
Right.
the internet. So,
We talk about a little bit about what it looks like, because
sure.
I just don't, I think some people like you may feel like they are experiencing it, but they may not realize that that's what it is. I guess the biggest thing that we hear, and when I say we, Kathy and I, when we talk to women about organizational betrayal, a lot of it is when organizations don't put, like, best practice
Hmm.
first. So they're doing things the way they have always done it, because they've
We've
kind of
always
been
done it.
accidentally successful
Yep.
all this time without a major incident where the taxpayers aren't questioning the organization. So they just keep doing what they've been doing.
Hmm.
And the guys that are into the job are coming back from these conferences, and they're trying to tell the organization, listen, we know that this has worked for 100 years, but let's try this. And they're being shut down with no new ideas, nothing, to spark, any new in the organization. And that's probably the biggest one we hear, especially obviously when we go to these conferences. The guys are doing their thing and they're
Yeah.
learning, and the wives have come with them, and then we're doing a spouse track or a wives breakfast or whatever, and we're talking about this, and they're like, yeah, my husband goes to these things because he's so passionate, and then he goes back and they don't want to hear a thing he has to
Hmm.
learn, like, all these things that he's learning, they don't want to hear a thing about it.
Nope, they
And
sure
so
don't.
that's organizational betrayal, because you're
Okay.
not being supported.
I like that.
So another one, this might be a little on the personal side.
Sure.
So when an organization puts money before safety,
Okay.
not getting appropriate equipment. And I'm not saying my favorite nozzle or my favorite hose, like not getting the equipment that is needed to do the job the best of its ability. Not hiring enough overtime to keep the crew safe. That's
Yeah.
a big one. Not bringing in quality training or not training at all. Like
Yeah.
that's putting money before the safety of the station. And I that is just as much organizational betrayal to me it as the other one.
Sure.
So
Especially when it's documented, especially when you have
yes,
guys and they're
yes,
saying like, this is a
yeah,
safety issue. Like
yeah,
we need to get out and train on this equipment, or this equipment is actually failing us on the job. We need to
right,
replace it.
yeah,
Where, and that's, and then and I've said it before, it's, they come back at you with, it's a budget issue. We would
yeah,
love to get you these things, but we'd love to get you new equipment, but well, the budget didn't pass this year. So we're
yeah,
not going to be able to get these things. And again, we've talked about like, it's not the hose or it's not
yeah,
the pretty
yeah,
nozzle, but it's aged out equipment that is starting to fail us. And the guys are
yeah,
seeing it and saying, hey, we're tired of putting a Band-Aid on equipment that's going to eventually hurt us or fail us, and
yeah.
now it's going to cause a life safety issue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the overtime thing, and listen, I know overtime's expensive, but when you have a busy crew, in a busy station, it could be a high rise, it could be a water area, like any of those types, and you're not getting a full crew, that
Yeah.
that to me, I mean, don't put the other guys in danger because you don't want to hire overtime.
Yeah. And that's an out of the box thinking too,
Yeah.
is I think also organizational betrayal is also when you have guys who are passionate, guys and girls who are passionate, and they want to see the job be better and the station to be
Yeah.
safer and themselves, to when they ask, hey, we need to start thinking outside the box. I
Yeah.
have ideas that's going to help.
Hmm.
And these are the ideas that I have for you. And they're immediately dismissed. All
Yeah.
right. Like, then why am I going to bother again? Why am I going
Yeah.
to care?
And that's exactly it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it ruins
Yeah.
morale. And then what happens? They walk around the floor and all pissed off and sulking. And now you have a morale issue, and guys and girls don't really want to do the job anymore because they don't trust the
Yeah.
upper staff because they won't listen. And
Yeah.
I've said it many times, man, it comes down to the end user of everything. We are the people driving the trucks. We are the people pulling the
Mhm.
hose. We are the people out in the field. And if we have great ideas and upper management doesn't want to listen, then that's a betrayal to us because
Yes.
we're telling you what's working and what's not working. And when you dismiss us, you're telling us that you don't care or trust about what we're
Yeah.
doing and our opinions.
Well, and even in this day and age, organizational betrayal is an organization that does not support mental health.
Mm,
Like that is absurd to me in this day and age that there are still departments that do not put that at the forefront
yeah.
or laugh it off or think, we're a bunch of strong firemen. We don't need that. Like that is the most ridiculous thing in the world to me. And I invite anybody in charge of a fire department to come sit in with these wives and hear what they have to say about it, and then go back and tell your organization that it's not important,
Yeah.
because that is a huge issue that needs to be dealt with. The fire service has come a long way, I will say that, but not all departments are as forthcoming with the help,
Yeah.
or even attempting to help, as they should be.
Do you think that it's from your experience of going to conferences and doing these trainings, do you think that it's because the departments don't know where the resources are?
If they don't know the issues by now, they need to get out and talk to some people, because I can't, if they don't know, they are living under a rock.
I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. Like,
No, I
if
know
there's
you are.
actually
I
departments
know.
that don't know, like I agree wholeheartedly that it's no secret anymore. It's
No.
everywhere. And honestly, like if you work for a municipality, their human resources departments are usually on top of it, and they actually, like, I believe they have an obligation to be able to be on top of that and make sure that the resources are posted so everyone
Right.
knows where to go. Now, of course, do we trust those postings and trust the people that they're making us talk to? That's a different story. I was experienced of that from my previous life
Yeah.
in my previous department. Of I just never felt like they really gave a crap about my mental health, and
Right.
it's the worst when they just throw that pamphlet at you and just say, all right, here's employee
Yeah.
assistance program. Here's the pamphlet. You should give them a call. Like that
Yeah.
doesn't do anything for me because that's not what I want.
Right.
That is that easy.
Well, and we hear it so much from the wives. I mean, Kathy and I, we get personal messages, we get phone calls, we get emails just asking, like, I live here. Do you have any resources
Mm,
for my husband? The fire department won't help. I live here. Do you know of any therapists that might cover first responders? And
mm,
then on top of all of that, I mean, I know for a fact it is hard to break that because we have a wonderful therapist that works with us in the St. Louis area. Her name is Valerie Beeson, and she only works with first responders.
that's
And
awesome.
she hears it.
Yeah.
She hears it from firefighters that are coming in on their own, not being mandated to come in, but coming in on their own and saying that the fire departments and there's some wonderful St. Louis fire departments, but I mean and she works a lot of Missouri, so I'm not calling anybody out in any way, shape, or form, but
Sure.
she said it's tough. Some of the fire departments um, don't really believe it's still a good old boys club, and
Yeah.
by God, you're going to buck up and figure it out on your own.
I
And
was
that's
told many times,
yeah,
just I have to get over it. You
yeah,
have to get over it.
yeah. Easier
It's
said than done.
100%. That's exactly what I was about to say. It's not that easy. You can tell me all day long that I have to get over it, but it's not a switch.
Yeah,
And that's again, when it's a personal attack, a personal betrayal
yeah,
of something that you love, you can't get over it because it's my family and it's my home that you just crapped all over.
yeah,
So you can't turn it off like a switch. And that was the same thing for me. I didn't use my employee assistant program because I didn't trust it and I didn't like who they had representing. And I sought out treatment on my own. And it took a while too. We didn't have a lot of resources. There wasn't many clinicians out there that dealt with first responders. And if there
yeah,
was, they're fully booked because there's only one or two in the area,
yeah,
or you have to travel an hour.
yeah.
When guys are needing help, and you tell them
Time
like
is
time is
so,
of the essence, right?
yes.
Yes, when
That's
they
like the
tell me
most
I'm
important
3
thing.
months out to be booked,
Yeah,
I'm not waiting 3 months, and I'm gonna give up. Like, forget it.
yeah,
I'll suck it all inside and be my miserable self until maybe again I feel
yeah,
obligated to reach out. But that was the struggle. So for me, I finally was able to see somebody, and I see them off and on. I probably should go more regular, but I go off and on with them. But it was actually sparked me to actually open up an office in our area in Nashua. My
yeah.
sister, she runs a clinician office in New Mexico, and I told her my story, and I said we need help here. We need more clinicians that deal with first responders and PTSD. And so she said, let's do it. So we opened up an office in Nashua, New Hampshire. So we're going to have hopefully 4, 5 clinicians that are going to be available without needing
That's awesome.
right. And we're not
Right.
doing this whole insurance verification. If you need help,
Yes. Yeah.
let us know, call us and we'll get you in.
That's exactly what Valerie came across, that wasn't covered under insurance. They couldn't afford it. In fact, Kathy helped her write this grant, and she can see any first
Wow.
responder at any time. And it's all covered under the grant. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
I know, right?
So we'll talk about Kevin's. Like, how did this all start? So again, if you there's certain details, please by all means you can leave them out.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to hear your guys' story
Yeah.
about the betrayal that he had experienced,
Yeah.
and that sparked all of this for you guys.
Yeah. So most of his was really him trying to better the department. And I'm not going to call out, I mean, it's
Sure,
only one of two.
sure,
So, I mean, take your pick.
yeah,
But he really tried to better the department. And under the leadership they have now, it's
sure.
much better. When Kevin was there, they had a string of awful chiefs. I mean, awful. Like, it was bad. Didn't want to involve families. Just like I had mentioned, it's just a good old boys club, and nobody's gonna tell us what to do and how to do it. And so, Kevin is so passionate about the fire service. And even though this actually, him being a key hose is actually perfect. He gets to flow water and talk about, um, nozzles with Andy Plufkin from Elkhart and like all the things. Like, so this, like, he misses the fire, but he's in
Sure.
fire departments all day, every day almost. And so, but he's just an engine geek and he's a water geek and he just loves it. And he loved it from the beginning. And so I mean, we went to conference after conference and like CFT was on the green team and then like all the things. He was so into it and he tried to better his department, and the previous chiefs they had just did not want, and ended up he was the bad person. Like they ostracized him for
Yeah.
being the one that wanted to bring in the change.
Hmm.
And there was a couple guys on his crew though that really believed in like yeah, let's train today, Cap, let's do, they were with him, but for the most part those previous chiefs tried to make Kevin look like the bad person when all he wanted was to make the organization better and bring in new ideas and try and help um you know innovative ways to do things,
Yeah.
and they just weren't having it at all.
That sounds
And so
really,
then he
really,
felt like, what am I even doing? Like, what am I
yeah.
even doing?
That's it's very interesting because how I got turned on to the fire conferences was by a gentleman named Dennis Herring, and he works at CFT. He's part of the green
Mhm.
team. I never knew of CFT. I didn't know what the heck it was. The only conference I knew about was FDIC, right? And
Yeah.
that was the big
Yeah.
show. And then Dennis started telling me about CFT, and I started looking at the videos, and everything that he brought back was impressive.
Yeah.
All the knowledge, all the information, and he just would always come back glowing about it. And
Yeah.
it was like it was definitely his retreat. It was his little world. I never really understood why, because when he worked for us, that was like an agreement. Like when he got hired as a training captain, that I'm allowed to take this time off because I'm going down there. Like he was adamant.
Yeah.
And I never really understood how much that meant to him. I knew that he had some struggles going on from a previous department that he was at. And, I never realized that. And then and then he would come back, he'd bring ideas, but the person that was in charge, same thing, like
Yeah.
didn't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
It was always immediate no until you had to really kind of press it. And then
Yeah.
or we just start doing it. And then he would just kind of eventually fold and say, well, fine. Obviously you're going to do what you want anyways. And, have an
Well, I
issue
just
with it.
don't understand how an organization Kevin was going to these conferences and he was learning from, Jimmy Davis and Brian Brush and like Clyde Gordon and like, so like the best of the best out there. And he was trying to bring things back. Those, and you can't say to me, I just sat in a 3 hour whatever with Clyde Gordon and I would like to try this. If they don't know who some of these people are, then they need to get out because
So
these conferences are bringing in the best of the best
they
that there
are.
are.
And the
Yeah.
funny that so were just said what I was just going to say. So the fact that you said the best of the best. So
Yeah.
when I finally got to go and I made a post, I'm like, I am learning from the best of the best. Somebody who was on my department I previously worked at had made a comment behind my back when I was still at the program. And I heard this from somebody else and they said, the guy said, "Oh, look at Mike. He's over there saying he's learning from the best of the best. How does he know they're the best of the best? Who's saying that they are the best of the best? How does he know?" And you just nailed it.
Do a little
Like,
research.
do some research. Like they are, like a lot of these people are the best of the best. They don't label themselves as best of the best. They're very
Yeah.
humble.
Yeah.
But we, being the students of the craft, I had given them that
Yeah.
label of you are the best of the best because we're paying damn good money and spending our time away from home to learn from these people who have
Yeah.
dedicated their lives
Yeah.
to the job and to the knowledge to give it back to us. So yeah, in my mind, they're best of the best.
Yeah.
And when I came back home full of energy and I
Huh?
felt passionate again, and when I heard that somebody was knocking what I was doing and how passionate I was about it and learning from the best of the best, to say that's not true. Obviously you haven't done your homework, like you said, and you're not taking that experience in. And so, and like you said in your guys' article, it really is super important to go to these conferences.
Yeah.
And it's not just for training. It really has become an awakening for me of going to conferences and like just meeting with Kevin. I never knew his background. I didn't know his history. I just knew he was a dude that loved hoses. And
Yeah.
and he was so easy to talk to. And had I known about his history, about that article, I probably would have spoken to him a lot more and had a good sit down with him if I could.
Yeah.
But that's the great things. Like when I go back, I can't wait to bend his ear. I can't wait to talk about his experiences, and we can talk about those things. And
Yeah.
that's the exciting part of it is meeting these people who have struggled just like I have. Once you start
Yeah.
talking about it and you bring it up, it's amazing about the people that you meet that really have almost the same experiences that you have. And it's therapeutic. And it's not just doing the hands-on work and hands-on training, but it's actually honestly like a therapy session, talking with brothers and sisters who have dealt with a lot of the same issues, whether it's
Yeah.
what we saw on scene or how we were dealt with inside of our firehouse. You come back refreshed and rejuvenated, and
Yes.
hopefully you can have that passion against your firehouse. But it sucks though, because it only can do it for so long, right?
Right.
You only it's like it's that temporary band-aid that
Yeah.
is only going to hold on for so long, and then it's going to fall off again, and you have
Yeah.
to keep reapplying it at conferences.
Yeah.
When does it end?
Yeah. Well, I was comparing. So when I was a teacher, I would go to conferences, and I luckily worked in some great school districts that paid for me to go to different trainings and conferences, and I would come back and like you guys do. And the great thing is, as a teacher, you kind of can do your own thing in your own classroom. So I was able to apply all the things that I learned and was like, super stoked about it. And I'm going to try this. And nobody gave me any grief because I ran my own ship. Like
Sure.
those were my kids and I could do what I wanted to. I mean, as long as I was teaching the curriculum I was supposed to,
Right.
like there's, it's kind of an open book. And, but Kevin didn't have that luxury. He would learn all these things and want to apply. And there's so many barriers that you have to break down to try and
So
do that,
was it just the fact that he was being dismissed for a lot of things he was bringing back? Were there other things that were starting to really to weigh on him inside that department?
I think the biggest thing was that he was looked at as the troublemaker,
Hmm.
because he was wanting to change
Sure.
some things. That I think was the biggest issue with him. It wasn't it, and he's one of those, you like me, you don't. He doesn't he's one of those that it is what it is. But I do think that weighed heavily on him, that he was made to look like
Hmm.
the ideas were nonsense, or that, he was the one trying to cause trouble and stir things up and things like that. And again, it was just bad admin.
So when
And the
he'd have to
board
come
wasn't
home,
great either, because
the
the
what?
the board,
Oh, the board.
the
Okay.
fire department board, members kind of weren't, like, they were kind of owned by admin. So,
Gotcha.
you know, but
So when he'd come home, what kind of person was he when he'd
oh,
come home having to deal
so
with that?
it got to a point, and again, wives want to help. Like we talked about it. It's different when they're coming home upset about what happened during the
Hmm.
job. It shouldn't be them coming home about the job.
Yes.
So when
Yes.
he would get, really aggravated and talk to me about, what he was trying to do, and was getting nowhere, and it was just like banging his head up against the wall trying to, and he was in a weird position because he couldn't just go anywhere. He was already up to captain. So then you got to look at
Gotcha.
surrounding areas, that because it's easy to say, well, go get a new job.
Yeah.
That's not always, like, it's easier said than done. So he had already worked up to captain and didn't want to start over. And then you got to look at pay. And then it was, and he didn't go through the fire academy. So he was a little limited. He went through Mizzou for a lot of his stuff. So not all fire departments would take you unless you went through the fire academy.
Correct.
So he was very limited on what he could do. So we kind of got, just packed up and moved to South Carolina.
All right.
So that was kind of our, we moved to South Carolina. We moved to Myrtle Beach, and he got on at Horry County, which we don't have. I mean, this is, so anybody watching knows what fire department I'm talking about now in the St. Louis area. So There's nothing really bad we can say about Horry County other than when we moved to South Carolina, that was our retirement spot. And I retired, and then he got a job at Key.
All right.
And he was like, well, I'm not retiring anytime soon because we talked about it. And obviously
Sure.
it was something he couldn't pass up. But we did have to move to one of his 7 states. So back to Missouri we came.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, he was so frustrated. He researched where he could move laterally as an
Yeah.
officer. Like
Not easy.
that's how upset he was. Like, Tracy, what do you think about moving to Myrtle Beach? What? Well, they're growing so fast that like I could get on as an officer. What? Like that's how bad it was. And so I mean, okay, move me to the beach.
Right, well,
That's
it's not. You
fine.
could go to worse places, right? I mean,
Right? But I mean, if that doesn't tell you how bad it was, nothing will.
I
So,
had applied to different places many times throughout my years, and I'd always withdraw my application
yeah,
because I was afraid of missing out. What
yeah,
promotions I was going to miss out on,
right.
or apparatus coming through the door, or there's going to be, staffing changes and schedule changes, and what happens if I leave this department? Am I going to be happy at the other department?
Yeah,
That was my biggest thing is that worry of change. Like, I could lateral because I wasn't an officer, and so. But I was also getting older, and
yeah,
am I going to be as marketable? Are they going to want to hire somebody
right,
in their 40s, and and are they going to like me? Am I going to like them? Am I going to like the way they do things operationally? Am I going to like
right.
whatever they got going on? And
Is it going to be worse
is it going to be
than when I
worse?
had it? Like
Right.
you never know.
Like they
Yeah,
always say, right? The grass isn't always greener. And I was really scared about that. And it'd be those days where, like I've said to friends before, honestly, it was like a domestic violence where, it's going to be better tomorrow. He didn't mean what he said today. Tomorrow's going to be better. And I'd go into work, and maybe a month would go by, I go, okay, things are good again. And all of a sudden something would happen. And I would say, what am I doing here? Why do I keep going through this?
yeah,
And then I would bring it home. And again, my wife would say, then you need to look for another place. And
right.
I would apply. And again, I'd get scared because I have a
Hmm.
strong possibility that I might get the job. I was scared of getting the job.
Yeah,
Right. And
yeah.
that was my biggest thing. Was I interviewed really well. They want to offer me the job. And then I would literally, I
What do
would,
I do?
what do I do? And I would sit at home and going, my God, now I have to think. Now I have to go, what's the pros? What's the cons?
Yeah,
Do I want to do this? I
yeah,
would worry myself sick if I'm making the right choice for me and my family, because I love being a firefighter. And like you said, Kevin could go anywhere else. You go outside the fire service and do something else. Like work at Walmart, work at Home Depot,
yeah.
but it's not the same, and you're going to
No,
miss that. And I got scared of, do I want the job offer? I was almost hoping they wouldn't offer me the job, because then I wouldn't have to make that decision.
right.
And then, as the years go by, you start to get scared, because
Yeah,
now I really want to leave, but I might have burnt the bridge because I told them no, thank you. Are they going to want
yeah,
to give me another job offer?
yeah. It's easy for the wife to say, you know, go look somewhere else. But it's like you said, it's not that easy. And
Not that
then
easy.
you just never know. And then, like anything that affects the firefighter, it trickles down. But the thing is, like, if you have organizational betrayal and that's the reason your firefighter is coming home in a cranky mood and not happy, that's a constant. Like,
Yes.
the firefighter can come home and be on a busy shift and have a bad call, and that's, I mean, sometimes a call is a constant, but I
Hmm.
mean that's usually something that subsides. Organizational betrayal, unless there's some sort of admin shift or shift in the A and B and C, like, I let me tell
Yeah.
you, that's another thing. Let's take those lazy guys that don't want to do anything. Don't put
Yeah.
them all on the same shift.
Yeah. Exactly.
Let's let's
Yeah.
like
Now, did Kevin try to speak to anybody within his organization? Did he attempt to go to, like, I don't know if they had strong human resources, and did
he
he
went
have
to the
like paperwork?
local,
Yeah.
yeah. So there, I mean, he spoke to the union a little bit here and there, and he really tried to get in with some of the board members, but it just really was one of those organizations that, like I said, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Hmm.
And they just did not want anything to do with any sort of change. Now, I will say that that organization seems way better off now. They've had some admin change. And Kevin actually was just there not too long ago with a demo for hose. So we know they're buying new equipment. And he said that it's gotten a lot better, but it was a rough it was and he was there for so long. Like, he was only at Horry County for 2 of the 21
Yeah.
years. I
So
mean,
I
he
was going to ask
dedicated.
you,
Yeah.
does he miss home? Does he miss that department?
Yeah, he
Does
does.
he?
He enjoyed being back there for the demo and talked to some, and there was a lot of turnover. Like, and that was I think another reason. It wasn't just admin. Some of the battalion chiefs were much older, and
Sure.
like there was a lot of, and not that they were bad, they were listening to the higher ups, but there was such turnover in that department because it was an older group of guys when Kevin got hired. And so he said there might have been, you know, a handful of guys that he knew from when he worked there just a couple years ago, but he enjoyed doing the demo there, and he was happy to see that
Good.
there's been change made.
Did he not have, was so people not back him up because they were afraid of retaliation from the upper
Yeah,
staff?
so the couple guys that really stuck with him and really, and still to this day, they're tight. They were, I mean, they were firefighters. They were just engine guys, and not, they weren't in an officer position. So I don't think they felt like they had a say in anything.
Sure.
Anytime Kevin ever said anything, though, those couple guys always backed him,
Oh,
and
that's
what do
good.
you need from me, and like, and have those guys have moved on to other departments and are
Thriving.
officers and are awesome. But I think at that point in their career, because a couple of those, I know at least one of those guys that I'm referring to was hired in a safer grant. So like,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so they got a grant to hire on some guys. So he was like ex-military and then went into the fire service, and so he was real green in the fire service, and I don't think he felt like, him in particular that I'm thinking of, felt like he could say anything for sure.
Sure. Yeah, it's difficult. It's definitely when you don't feel like you have that voice or
Yeah.
enough time in to actually speak up.
Yeah.
It hurts a lot though when you don't have anybody to back you up, especially when you think that they're your friends and they're your brothers
Right.
and sisters, and we're supposed to pull each other out of burning
Yeah.
structures, but yet we can't back each other up, and because
Right.
we're afraid of confrontation.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
In your article, for both of you, you guys talked about the ripple effect on home life, the
Yeah.
emotional strain. Do you have anything about that? What was your experiences and how did you guys cope with that?
Well, I just, and so Kevin and I chose not to have children. I was with them all day. With his shift work and me being a teacher, we
Sure.
chose early not to have children. So we didn't even have that. So when I think of women that have talked about this issue in conferences and retreats that we've had, they have children that are seeing the effects. So it's not just
Sure.
the wife. I mean, yeah, I saw some, I mean, he was kind of unbearable.
Yeah.
But it was just me. I could walk
Yeah.
away. Like, when you have a family, like that's not something that you can just do. I mean, when you're not in a good spot with your career, it just, you feel like you're in this, like, there's nothing you can do. Is there something you can do? Like, I think his head was spinning and just not sure of anything, and so that made me feel helpless.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just think about the families that go through this and they have children.
Yeah, and
And
that, from personal experience, I was distant. I was
yeah.
removed. I come home, so my commute was only 7 minutes, so I didn't have time to blow off that
Uh,
steam, right?
yeah.
So I worked in the town that I
Yeah.
lived in, and it was bringing it home, and I was exhausted. I'd have a 12-hour shift, but I didn't do anything for the 12 hours. But I'd come home exhausted, mentally
Yeah.
exhausted, and I'd get migraines. I would
Oh,
just feel sick, and I was just constantly worrying about everything. Am I going to get fired? Am I going to get written up? Or just literally just whatever was going on in the station, I would just be home miserable. The fact that you're always talking about that, and
Yeah.
that was my biggest regret, is that as you being a spouse, as you being a fire wife, same thing with my wife, I feel that you guys obviously know what you're signing up for, but at the
Yeah.
same time, you're not signing up to have to listen constantly 24/7 about me bitching about my chief.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
that's not
there
part of
were
the
times where I told Kevin, "Listen, unless you're gonna do something about it, I don't wanna hear it anymore." And then I was like, that's again, like, I retracted that, and I was like, "Okay, I'm your sounding board." But it is hard. You get to a point as a wife listening to it that you're like,
it's like a broken record.
well, yeah, yeah. It would be like me coming home and complaining about my principal every day. Like,
Yeah,
which
she's not going to
come
want to hear
on.
it anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah, then
yeah,
just leave your job.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's not that easy for either sides.
Right.
And I felt so bad for my wife that that's all I ever talked about was how hard it was at work and all the things that he was doing and all
Mhm.
the stuff I didn't agree with. And it just, let's change the channel, but I
Yeah,
couldn't. And that's all I was focusing on. And I was distanced with the kids. I was irritable with the kids.
yeah.
I got, thank God I never took it out on them physically or anything, but mentally I was kind of checked out at
Mhm.
times. I just didn't want to be around people. And my only outlet really was just, I'd go to the gym and I'd just constantly work out. And that was my only thing. And even that became unenjoyable because it would just creep into my head again
Yeah,
and I couldn't clear my head. And that was my therapy. And then, it's not fair to the family. And it's not fair to your kids or your wife to have to constantly hear dad talking about the job again. The chief did this and the chief did
yeah,
that. And I can't believe that officer said this. And that's all it is. And like you said, you're going to have to do something about it or change the channel. And when I had the job offer from the department I'm on now, I was hemming and hawing about it. It took me 3 times for that department because I applied, then I withdrew. I applied, had a oral board, I
yeah,
withdrew. And
yeah.
then they finally gave me the job offer. And my wife's like, if you don't take it, then you can't complain anymore. Then this is
Right.
the bed you're going to lie in and you're going to have to deal with it. And that hit home. Like, this is
Yeah.
enough. I'm turning 45. Like I can't
You
keep hawing and hemming about it anymore. Something's going to have to be done. And I can't keep living this life because if for people listening, that if you are on the fence about those things, like if you've watered that lawn enough and it's not getting greener,
yeah.
you might have to look about other
Yeah.
lawns out there that might be greener, because that was what made me scared, was with my former chief saying, the grass isn't always green on the other side. You're not going to make it in the other world there, and you can do it. It takes a little more extra work.
Well, and I know Kevin would always say, "No, I'm I can't I can't leave officer position, da 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 da.
Yeah.
I can't make less money." You know what? If you're I can vouch for as the wife, I would have been like, "I don't care how much less you're making. I don't
Yeah.
care that you're not a captain. I don't care, like, just be happy." The wife does not care
She just wants her
about that
husband
in
back.
any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, you just want your husband back. You
Yes.
want your life back. You want the happiness back.
Yeah.
And like you said, the ripple effect that you guys talked about, it carries all the way down. I mean, again, like, you want to go out for a date night and
Yeah.
you got a shadow sitting across from you
Yep.
because all
Because
he can
guess what
think
you're gonna
about is
end
the
up
job.
talking about?
Exactly. 100%, 100%. And you definitely have to have that unplug too. And if you have a pager or a phone that you're on, for the department, you need to unplug that when you're on those date nights or family events, birthday parties.
Mhm.
I mean, I started as a call guy in that department, and then I had my career as a full-time member on that department as well. And I never unplugged. My pager was always there. My phone was always blowing up. And I mean, I had left my kid's birthday. We were going out for dinner and structure fire came in. I ran out that door as fast as I could to go to that structure fire. And that was my choice. That he didn't
Yeah.
tell me I had to do it, but we're firefighters and that's what we do. Plus the restaurant was literally across the street from the firehouse. So
Yeah.
like there's no way I could be able to enjoy dinner. So, but I had left my family to do that structure fire. And I was talking to him about that. My former chief didn't give a hoot about the fact that I had missed a big family event, and he didn't, it's not even a pat on the back. It's
Yeah.
just, it was nothing. He didn't care. He didn't really just that was his thing. He's like, "I'm not gonna give you a pat on the back for coming into to work today." And I don't expect that. And I don't think anybody in our line of work ever expects to get an attaboy because we
Right.
came to work today and we drove the truck and we drove it back safely. That's what we're supposed to do. But when you go above and beyond and like Kevin trying to bring positive things back and no one gives a crap about it and they don't give you any kind of recommendation or any kind of approval or say, "Hey, good job." There's nothing that you just start to go, "Well, what am I bothering? What am I doing all this for?"
Well, in any job, appreciation goes a long way.
Appreciation, yeah.
Just to get a little recognition here and there,
Yeah,
I mean, that's huge. But, firefighting tends to be such a humble job. Um, but there are good chiefs out there and good officers out there that
sure.
do that. And I mean that and it's important. I mean, you can't just you can't just do things like they've always been done and just because we're guys and we're firefighters doesn't mean you can't give somebody their due. Like that's silly to me. So,
So for you and Kathy working on this article,
mhm.
how did you guys actually get together to work on this article? Because it's so in sync with each other.
Well, so here's what okay, so the ELA teacher in me, I'm very I graded a zillion essays in my life. And so I like to write. I'm a writer. I write everything down. I journal. So I kind of tapped into well, and her and I have talked about. I wish she was here to tell Todd's story
Mm.
because
I would
it's
love. I know. We'll have to do another one because I really was looking forward to hear Todd's story
yep.
as well. Because
She
I got to
said,
hear him talk about it, and I mean, he is passionate about it.
yeah, that's a great story. So we just kind of tapped into like we knew we wanted to write an article about this. We
Mhm.
knew we had the title. I kind of was like, let's think of topics, let's think of titles. And then I kind of did a like a rough draft of here's how I feel like here's how we want to like put it together, subtitles. And then I sent it to her and then she was like, "Oh yeah." And then she would send stuff back. So we were back and forth through email and then we'd FaceTime and talk about it. And then when we submitted it to Firefighter Nation, Stephanie, our editor, was actually, she was like, "Can you make this longer? I want more." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Let's add some things we can like so we were just like back and forth with it and she loved it and she was like, "Anything else you want to
That's
write about,
great.
send it to me." So we've got a few things in the
You
pipeline.
do.
So
Okay. Is it still on mental health? Is it still on?
we're going to actually focus on, I think our next one is going to be about children in the fire service.
Oh, I
Um,
love that.
we've kind
Yeah.
of expanded a little bit. I mean, we are definitely focused on the wife, but we have noticed that the children that grow up in the fire service have a
Hmm.
completely different outlook than the firefighter and the wife might think they do. So we
Can
had
you
a
touch
couple,
on that? Can you
yes.
what is because I'm curious because I have two daughters. So I'm curious
Uh-huh.
about what you see and how they
So
have developed.
we had Ashlyn Gordon, who's Clyde and Melinda Gordon's daughter, on we do a like a monthly Zoom for firefighter or for Firewife Life, and we do a topic like estate planning, this, that. So we thought it would be kind of neat to have a couple kids on. We
That's fun.
had Zach Edwards, so Kathy and Todd's son. And then we had another one planned and she couldn't make it. So we had Ashlyn and Zach on, and we were just asking them questions about what it was like to grow up as the daughter or son of a firefighter. And it was interesting. Like Ashlyn was like, "Well, dad would come home and he'd be crabby and he'd be talking to me like I was one of his crew." And then Zach was like, and then Zach was like, "I felt compelled to be a firefighter. I thought dad just expected me to be a firefighter and that weighed on me for so long." And like it was a very interesting conversation with the
That's an
kids.
interesting aspect too, because
Mhm.
I think a lot, especially the sons, right?
Yeah.
They automatically assume that
Yeah.
they have to do what dad was doing, especially something
Yeah.
that he cares so much about.
Yeah.
that they feel obligated that they have to follow in their footsteps, or else
Hmm.
dad's going to be disappointed in them. That's a
Yeah.
really cool
And then,
angle.
it's funny, and we hear this all the time, that transition time that you guys have from the fire station to home. Like, there's there's not a magic switch. So,
No.
the kids sometimes feel like they're being talked to like, dad's crew,
Yeah.
and so it was a very interesting conversation with those two. It was real and raw, and some wonderful things, but there was some things that Kathy and I thought, well, maybe we'll write an
I like that
article
very
about
much.
kids growing up in the fire service, and kind of pull from that
Hmm.
conversation we had with those two during the Zoom. So
That's great. That's,
yeah.
man, I'm excited to hear more about that. That is really cool, man. So the impact on mental health that you wrote in your article, the mental
Yeah.
health of firefighters is already at
Yeah.
risk due to the nature of the work, but organizational betrayal adds another layer of difficulty. Can you touch more on that?
Yeah, mental health. I just think it is so important. And I'm so glad that the fire service is getting better and accepts it a little more. I just think that because of what you guys see, what you guys do, the there shouldn't be another layer
Mm,
of trauma put on you guys. The organizational betrayal is completely fixable.
it is
That's not like, you can't pick and choose what call you go to. If you
100%.
have a bad call and it is stuck in your brain, like, that's something you can't control.
Absolutely.
Circle of control, so,
Mm,
but I feel like it just makes me mad, because that I feel like that is something that could be controlled
hmm.
if the right people were in the right spots and doing the right things.
Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah.
it's you're absolutely 100% correct on that. And it's amazing too that when the HR or the town selectman or mayors or whomever runs, or is the boss of that
Mhm.
area, when they don't take notice when
Yeah.
there's a mass exodus, right? That their people are leaving every year, and
Right.
they do their exit interviews, but those exit interviews go nowhere, and they don't
Toss.
look into it. They just get tossed. And when I had my exit interview, I couldn't wait. I told my HR rep, I'm like, you sit down for a while. I got a lot to say. And
Grab a drink.
right, you're gonna be here for a while. She actually said, when I was going off, she says, why am I not hearing about any of this? And I
Mm.
said, because everybody's afraid to say something,
Yeah.
because they don't want to lose their jobs. We were reminded, especially on a daily, you're an at-will employee. I can fire you whenever you want to go. If you don't want to be here, you can go, but I can fire you. If you don't want to do it, I'll let you go. I got another person right behind you that can fill your position. It was like that all the time. So, we didn't want to lose our jobs. We loved what we do. We just hated the environment we were
Yeah.
in. And HR just pretty much kind of turned a blind eye. It's just another disgruntled employee. I was labeled disgruntled, so no one really
Yep.
listened to me. And I think, like with Kevin and Todd, you just get labeled as disgruntled, as the problem, as an angry
Yes.
person because you didn't get your way.
Right.
And so now you're not listened to. And honestly, for me, that carried back to my childhood, because I was abused as a child.
Mm.
And when I would complain about that abuse, and I'd go to my teachers, or I'd go to somebody who hopefully would listen, I was the problem child, because what was
Mm.
happening, right? I was lashing out, right? Because I
Yeah.
was I was angry, I was upset,
Yeah.
I was angry internally, so I'd get in fistfights all the time in school. So when I would say something, oh, it was just Mike being an angry kid, and they didn't know why. They didn't ask those
Right.
questions why. And it's the same thing as a firefighter who becomes disgruntled. There's got to be a reason. They came in full of life. They came
Right.
in
Yeah.
excited to be on this job, and they're giving so much back. Then all of a sudden that shifts.
Yeah.
Well, I think as a chief, you or a captain or a lieutenant, if you see that shift in somebody, you got to figure out what's going on. Why are
Right.
they suddenly disgruntled? What is happening with this person? Am I missing something? And especially honestly, I think it happens a lot too in small departments. Honestly, I think more frequently, because there's no one else that you can complain to, or
Right.
talk to, right? So, like, for me, it literally went from to the chief. It was me, chief. Like, there was no in between. So I didn't have anyone to advocate for me. I didn't have anyone I could complain to. If I complained to human resources, they'll go back to him and say,
Right.
hey, Mike's complaining about you. And I'm gonna get brought in the office and say, what is
Mhm.
your problem? Why are you complaining? And it's literally happened to me before where he's like, why are you complaining? I heard people from other people that you're complaining. So now, again,
Yeah.
I'm causing problems. I'm a complainer, and this is all around the nation. Everybody else I know is having. There's a lot of guys that I talk to who are having those same issues, and you're not the problem. You were full of zest. You were so full of
Right.
passion, and then someone turned on you, whether it's a chief, an assistant chief, or a captain, and it's a daily reminder that they give you that they don't give a shit about you. Well, then
Right.
you're going to become more disgruntled, more disenchanted with the job, and now you're going to be that old angry person that nobody wants to
Right.
be around. I was that person that nobody wanted to be around.
Well, and then some admin, and listen, I could, like, this happens in school too. Like this, it
Hmm.
happens everywhere. You get people in a power position and they don't want anybody to be better than them. Like
Nailed it. I mean, it's
like,
100%. It's a threat when you become
yes,
better than that person.
yes,
It's a threat.
yes.
Up to 100%.
I mean, and I was a damn good teacher and I had a principal that did not, she liked me, but I had like veteran teachers that did not like me because I was a good teacher and by
Yeah,
God, I had better plans than them. And I like, it happens everywhere. But in the fire service, when you're trying to protect a community,
yeah, yeah.
that's absurd.
Mm. Yep. And that's you really did it just shows how much Tracy. Like that's 100% accurate. Is that when you start moving up and you start getting more advanced in your skills and experience, that becomes a threat to other people and who hold those bigger positions, especially honestly if they're small-minded already or
Right.
insecure of their own selves. Normally you get some really good officers that are happy and proud that you're advancing beyond them. They want to see,
Yeah.
good officers want to see their guys promote over them.
Yeah.
That's what they trained them to do. That's what we
Yeah.
want to do, right? Leave it better than you found it. If
Yeah.
Mike Goldstein has improved himself and man, he made a captain and I retired as lieutenant. That should make that officer proud. I'm the
Yes.
one who trained him and
Yeah.
he has made me so proud that he's carried on tradition and legacy and experience and he's making other people better.
That's how it
But
should be.
that's how it should be. But then you have people that get threatened and then they got to make sure that they're holding
Yep.
their finger down on
No.
your neck to make sure that you're never
And
going to
then,
rise up.
for lack of a better word, they're just a bully.
Yes, no, 100%. No, it is really, and honestly, with this, I was surprised I didn't see that because it is kind of a bully
Yeah.
mentality that
Yes.
you really have to deal with that is not really addressed as much. And I felt that way. And it
Yeah.
was a really tough
No,
thing.
it is real for sure. It
And I
is
think it
real.
triggers a lot of people too. And I think and I expressed that to him at one point and just didn't go anywhere. But that from my childhood, it really brought that up again because my
Yeah.
stepfather was a bully. My stepfather was physically abusive and mentally abusive. And it was literally I couldn't bring up those issues I was having with this person because it made me feel like a kid again. So that when you have people that you don't know their history, and then when you treat them like shit, you're bringing up those old
Yeah.
scars again. And we talk about
Absolutely.
training scars in the fire service, but we also have the childhood scars that we still carry.
Oh, yeah.
And
And
that
listen,
definitely carries a lot of weight.
I mean, I I just I don't know how I know this. I think I read this somewhere, but I mean, there's a huge chunk of firemen that go into this service because maybe they weren't like you, like maybe they didn't have the best childhood or they
Yep.
had something happen. Like they're trying to make up for the bad that they had to live through at some point in their life. And
I think
I
that
know
helps
I've
to
read
be a
that
better
somewhere. But
provider.
yeah.
To me, that was one of the things for me. I always wanted to help because I had such a rough childhood. So if I can
Yeah.
be a difference, and think I have more of a keen eye to see who if a kid is struggling because
Yeah.
I've lived that life. So when we go on calls and I see someone who's struggling, or I can just I can sense it. I'm going to talk to them. I'm pretty good at talking, so I'll go and talk to that kid, or that even that person if it's an
Yeah.
adult that's having a kind of a mentally tough time. I'm usually the one that's trying to do my best
Yeah.
to bring him down and console him because when you don't have those experiences in life, it's tough to get it. And I don't want anybody to have those experiences, but when you do, you use it to your advantage. And the advantage is becoming a first responder, EMS, dispatcher, firefighter, police officer. You can use your bad experiences in the past and make a positive impact with the people that you serve. And because you can say, I know how you're feeling. It's hard to say, I know how you're feeling when you've never felt that way.
Right.
But when you're able to actually say, no, I know exactly
Yeah.
how you're feeling,
Yeah.
it really makes a difference to that person who's seeking help. Like, no, that dude gets it. I can tell the way he's
Yeah.
talking to me. He definitely understands. I know he's been in that position before. So I think you're right. I think why a lot of people join this for service
Yeah.
is because they feel compelled because of their childhood and they want to help others.
Yeah.
And, that's a self-serving thing. And,
It
we want to
is.
make sure we help others. I love it. You've definitely done your homework on that. I'm so excited to see the next articles you guys have to write here. I love the fact that you also put in here for seek professional help, like we talked about. There's so
So
much out there.
important.
It's
So
so
important.
important.
It is. I can't say enough about, Kevin's never really expressed anything to me to where I would say, no, you need to go talk to somebody.
Sure.
But if he did, I think he's not one of those that would be like, no, like that's not like if I said, listen, Kev, you need to talk to somebody. I think he would absolutely listen to me. But when Kathy and I sit and listen to these wives, we always try, whatever we're doing, we always try to end it with a big like round table discussion on anything we haven't touched or want to expand more on, like let them talk.
Yeah.
And mental health is so, like, wives have broken down in tears and because their husband won't seek help.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
they're not being supported, or they think they're too manly to do that or whatever. And there's in St. Louis, we're in talks of kind of teaming up and doing some things together. There's a foundation. His name's Michael Long, and he has a nonprofit called Break the Stigma.
Hmm.
And he is really trying to make sure that first responders have what they need and realize that it's not taboo to go seek help.
Yeah.
And I just think that some firefighters are just stuck on that.
You're right.
Yeah, I'm too much of a man. I'm the big burly firefighter. I can't go seek help. And that, honestly, that takes a strong person to admit it. I think you're a stronger person to realize it and to go do it. Um,
Absolutely.
I
I think
think
some of
it's
the fear too is that
a weak thing to not do it, because that's the
exactly.
easy thing, is to not do
But I think too is it's also that it's a sign of weakness, but also I think is the fear effect of they're not going to understand me. They don't
it.
live the same life I do. So I could talk to them blue in the face, but how are they going to understand my pain? How are they going to understand either my betrayal or the what I've seen in the field, because they haven't been there with me. And if
Yeah,
I have a problem, I'm just going to talk to my guys on my shift, and we'll just have some good laughs about it. But
yeah,
it's fake smiles, and you're not really getting those deep issues resolved. And then that's when it comes out, when it's too late, and you either lose your
yeah.
job or
I
something worse happens.
Kathy and I have mentioned, though, like, if nothing else, I mean, if nothing else, if your firefighter won't go seek help, or they won't talk to you, I mean, we call them work husbands.
Yeah.
Have them talk to their work husband,
Yeah.
because they can at least be some sort of sounding board. And some guys are more likely to go talk to that one. There's always there. It seems like there's always one guy you connect with,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
Kevin still talks to his work husband.
That's good. That's awesome.
you know,
That's great.
yeah, that's what we call it. And if nothing else, just please talk to somebody.
I like that you put here, excuse me. I love that you put on here about joining a local Fools chapter, and then talking
Yeah,
about the conferences or firefighters that are into the job. I love that you put that in there because,
yeah, it's so important, because some guys, they go to work and they're into it, and they're not surrounded by a lot of people that they feel are into it. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know how to explain this, but Kevin worked with some great people. Don't get me wrong, but they just, Kevin just always wanted to learn more, more, more,
Mhm.
more, and he was so into it. And once he started going to these conferences, he was like, oh, I'm not the only one out there. Like, there's other people that are
Yeah.
as passionate about this as I am. And I mean, some of his great friends don't live anywhere near us, just people that we've met at conferences. And same with the wives and schools chapter. Man, that's a big one. If you can, join a fools chapter in your area, I just think those guys get it. Like
Yeah.
they're guys that are into it and they're passionate about it. And so maybe if your own, fire department isn't as proactive about making things, you know, more not such a good old boys club,
Yeah.
then maybe your fools chapter would give you that outlet
Yeah.
a little more. Because Kevin joined Muddy River Fools, which is the St. Louis chapter. It's like the Illinois, St. Louis, right along the Mississippi. And when he was in St. Louis, and that helped tremendously.
Oh, that's good.
Such a bit,
That's
because
great.
there were guys there that he saw that were in the region. He could still, reach out to them. It wasn't like they were, many states away, that he was like, yeah, I'm not the only one. And I'm not the only one kind of stuck in a fire department that's, you know, not not the ideal
Yep.
situation. So
I felt exactly the same way, and I talk about it all the time when I went to Texas and the Dadgum conference, and I'll keep talking
yeah,
about it until I'm blue in the face. I talk about it all the time because that was I had just left my department and gone to the new one, and so I still was feeling the effects of just not knowing where I belong, and I didn't know what to expect at that conference. And then I met some amazing people there.
yeah,
I was kind of intimidated just from I'm out of my element, New Hampshire to Texas, and I've never been to Texas before. And
yeah,
then, meeting a lot of people, but I was afraid to really talk to anybody. And then we just started warming up and talking to Kevin Pfluger, who runs it, and then
yeah,
Tom Hollick, who helps to run it with him. And it was the fact that they were so opening and the hospitality of welcoming us in to come to Tom's house and have a cookout
yeah.
and meet everybody. And they just took the time to really just sit down and talk with us. It was fantastic. It was such an amazing feeling to feel so welcomed, and it made me forget a lot of the problems that I had,
Hmm.
and it made me realize how blessed I am to be in the fire service and to be with these like-minded individuals
That's
and
it.
right,
Like-minded. Yep, that's
like-minded
exactly it.
individuals. Yeah, and you do forget about your problems when you're doing some good solid training, when you're sweating it out with everybody else and putting in that work. And you're not thinking about that. You're thinking about how sore you are at the end of the day from all the reps that you did, and
Yeah,
bringing people out of a building. It's a lot of fun, and it really does. It puts things in perspective. Again, but a lot of my good friends, like you just said, they don't live in New Hampshire. A lot of my
yeah.
friends actually live in Texas. I mean,
I can vouch. Pfluger's a good guy.
he is a
I've
great guy,
Yeah.
and I'm
I
so
enjoy
blessed
I
to know
like
him.
him a lot. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Tom's a great
so
guy,
he
and the
used
the Cano
to
brothers are a good guy.
yeah,
All those guys are just, and their wives are amazing, and that's exactly what you said. Like, to get with people who are like-minded individuals into the job, it's not also just them, but it's the spouses as well that
mhm,
welcome you in. And there's no handshaking; it's all
yeah,
hugs, and it's the fact that they're taking the time to get to know you, and it costs them nothing to become your friends
right.
and to want to see you succeed. And if you don't know how it is unless you go, and the information's out there. You don't even have to search that hard. You literally it's posted everywhere.
So when I mentioned that some women get intimidated because the fire service is overwhelming and is a little bit all encompassing,
Yeah.
that is what makes it worth it though.
Yeah.
Like all the people that you meet that become your family.
Hmm.
Like we tell wives all the time, because there's some wives that, it's their first conference and they didn't really want to come to this wife event, and they didn't really, they kind of resent the fire department. If you embrace it, you will not be sorry. Because I was that person that I did. I mean, my husband would, before I would go with him, he would go to
Hmm.
conferences and he'd call me and he'd say, you want a shirt that says like firefighter wife on it? And I would be like, no. When you start wearing a shirt that says teacher husband, I'll wear a shirt that says firefighter wife. Like I was very
Nicely done.
reasonable, but Kevin wasn't in the fire service when we married. So
Okay.
it was kind of like this crazy shift that he did to me that I wasn't prepared for. But once I opened up to it. I don't know what took me so long to
Wow.
do so, because it is well worth it.
Did you ever resent it? Did you ever resent him?
Absolutely, I
Yeah.
did. Absolutely. When I first met Kevin, he's, making great money, and, I'm just a little old teacher. So, I was like, okay, we'll be fine. And then he comes home from a volunteer fire department one day and he says, Tracy, I'm going to be a firefighter. Okay. Well, I didn't believe it. And then he was captain of the volunteer. And then he did his fire one, fire two, officer this, blah, 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 EMT. And then, yep. So he wasn't joking.
You honestly, you and Kevin
I
have a
did
lot
resent it because I
in
was not
common.
prepared.
You're not prepared. That's funny because literally that's kind of how it went down with me and my wife. Like I was a dispatcher by trade, and then
Okay.
I wanted to do more with the fire service. Once we moved to a town that had a volunteer call department, I joined that. I dove in head first, and and that's all I
Yeah.
wanted to do after that. It's like I want to be a firefighter. That's
Yeah.
what I want to do. That's my goal. And I left a pretty high paying dispatching job for a
Yeah.
big city fire department to become a full time firefighter in a small department.
Yeah.
My wife, I give her all the credit in the world, right? She went with me. And I mean, she has a little bit of a heads up because her dad was a
Okay.
retired firefighter.
Yeah.
So she grew
Yeah.
up with that as
Yeah.
well. But yeah, she was very supportive. And I think definitely she had some resentment, probably still does about it. And
Yeah.
the troubles that we've had to deal with. I was
Right.
definitely not fun to be around. And
Right. Right.
I think what you're doing is fantastic. I think what you and Kathy are doing is fantastic. And I'm just so blessed and excited to be able to get this out to everybody.
Yeah.
It's mental health. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be in the rawest form of
Right.
seeing blood and guts. This is betrayal that within your organization when the people that you look up to or the people that you trust are not
Yeah. The
believing in
people
you.
that are
And
supposed to have your back are
exactly.
the ones that don't have your back.
Exactly. And that's what hurts the most. I tell you what, in the fire service is when people don't have your back, the ones that you thought they were going to have your back,
Mhm.
when you turn to them and you need help. Honestly, too, is part of my organizational betrayal. Also didn't come from just my piss poor management, but it came from people when I talked to them about my issues or just a vent, really just,
Yep.
that's what we do in the firehouse. We piss and moan and we just want to vent. But the problem is that betrayal also comes in effect when you have the brothers or sisters that you talk to and you're venting them and then they go running to that chief.
Yes.
That's a huge betrayal. And that's a huge feeling of that you can't let go because now you don't have anybody to talk to. And now you feel utterly alone. And now you can't trust the guys that you're riding that truck with because you've literally gave them everything that you had that was bothering you inside. And they ran over to the corner office to say, hey, Mike's complaining about you.
Right.
That's not what we're supposed to do as firefighters. We don't go run to the chief and tell him everything that somebody said. We have honestly like an unspoken oath to ourselves as brothers and sisters that
Mhm.
if you got a problem, you can talk to me. If you want to bitch about the chief, bitch about the chief. I'm not going to go run into him
Right.
because I want you to talk to me. And then if you break that trust, then we can't talk to each other.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's a big thing we talk about is we need to talk to each other. And you break that trust, now you have somebody who is going to just have animosity towards everybody in that
Well,
organization.
and I can't think of a career that you need that trust bond more
Yeah,
than firefighting. So,
absolutely. Yeah, it's a huge thing because because we know exactly what's going on because we live it and breathe it. We've had the same experiences. So that's why we have that trust. So I can turn to my brother and say, "Hey man, that chief's an asshole. I don't know why he did this and I don't know why he did that." And that's where it should be left on the
yeah.
apparatus floor.
Uh-huh.
But unfortunately, you do have people who don't understand that, and they're doing it usually because they want a leg up. If
Yep.
they're telling that chief everything that they're hearing on that floor, right
You're in
now
with
that
the chief.
you're in with the chief, right, and that's not a good thing. You should not be in the chief's office sitting down having conversations every time as a line firefighter because you're your best buds, and no one wants
Yeah.
to talk to you because you're literally spilling the beans on everything you're hearing on the floor.
Yeah.
And
I
that's going to
agree
now
with
make
that.
your life pretty uncomfortable. Once guys find out that you're bending that chief's ear, right, they're not going to want to talk to you. You're going to live a lonely life because no one's going to want
Uh-huh.
to talk to you. But I had to have those conversations with certain people and say, hey, man, I just had a conversation with the chief. Just literally said everything that I just told you. Did you
Yeah.
just have a conversation with him? Well, yeah, he asked this and asked that. And I said, what did you say? Well, everything you told him, everything you told me.
Oh my
So it's
God.
like, but man, you really shouldn't because I told you that in confidence.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you didn't say that I couldn't say it to anybody. And
Well,
again, it's like kind of like the unspoken rule, the
yeah.
unspoken oath that, well, if I'm telling you something, and if I'm not saying in front of him, it's because I just want to say it to you. I'm just venting. So those are things that I think a lot of people forget, that
Yeah.
we still owe it to ourselves, and to talk to each other. And
Yeah.
if you can't trust anybody, that's just the problem, where people aren't talking to each other, and drastic things happen where that one person feels like there's nobody to turn to, and they don't want to bring it home anymore. And then those from the drastic things happening. We're losing too many brothers and sisters to suicide, and not helping with
Absolutely.
mental health. And we need to overcome mental health, to where these temporary problems is not a permanent solution. We need to make sure that we're doing our service to our own. That if a fellow brother or sister comes up to you and they're expressing problems either with staff or something, and they come to you to vent, let them vent.
Yeah.
Obviously, if there's something that's where they make a statement that they might hurt themselves, or they have a
Yeah.
plan,
Yeah.
then yes, something needs to be done. But if they're coming to vent because they trust you to talk to you, then take that as a sign of
Yeah.
respect, and listen to them. And we talk about being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Those are going to be the uncomfortable situations,
Mhm.
especially if you go up to somebody and say, hey, man, you don't look like you're doing well today. Do you want to talk? When you open that up, they're trusting you to open up and to vent and just really spill the beans of everything that's bothering them. You
We
owe it
talk
to them
about
now
that
to
a
talk
little
about it.
bit. We have like a little communications program that we do with the wives, because we all know that men and women communicate completely differently.
Yeah.
And, it just men in the fire service with their shift work and all the things kind of, amplifies the communication issue. So we always tell them, when you're talking to each other, you don't always need something fixed.
Hmm.
You may just be wanting to vent. So if you're talking to your husband, tell him up front. Tell him, like, hey, I'm talking to you because I just want to talk. I don't need you to fix this. Vice versa.
Yes.
The husband might want to come home and vent. I don't need you to fix this. I just need you to listen. So that's a
Love
huge
it.
thing, because we don't can't read each other's minds. And I think, sometimes when I'm venting, Kevin thinks he needs to fix it. No, just listen. That's all I
Just
need you
listen.
to
I
do.
love it. Yeah, and I love the fact that you're saying also, like, look, I'm just gonna talk. I'm just talking.
Yeah.
I don't need you to do anything. I don't
Nope.
need you to
Just
make phone
listen.
calls. I just
Yep.
want you to listen. That's what you're
Yep.
here for, is to listen. And that's super important as
That's an easy
spouses.
one.
It's an easy one. I could do that. I mean, I'm happy to listen, and I think that's great. Like, they really to make sure that that's spoken to
Yeah.
each other as spouses. Like, look, I just need you to be here and listen.
Yeah.
Just, and that's honestly, in prefacing that, you're taking your phone and just like literally chucking it over there. I want
Yeah.
you to listen right now,
Yeah.
and just listen to me vent. And as a husband, I'm going to take my phone and put it somewhere else, because even
Yeah.
though I'm listening, I know I'm going to grab my phone and kind of look, and that's horrible to anybody. So take that phone, put it
Darn.
somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
And then just listen for an hour or 2 hours,
Yeah.
as long as that person's venting. I see in here too. I want to touch on it really before,
Yeah.
as we were winding up, but I love that you put in here, prioritize self care. What do you do for your self care as a spouse?
So I will say I am a huge music person. I love concerts. I love all music. When Kevin is in Texas on demos, I will take myself to a concert by myself. I'll get with some friends. We'll go to, like, I don't usually watch TV. I have Amazon Music playing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's my therapy. So I'm just a huge music person, like any music. So I that's kind of my thing. If I need to just like chill, I'll just listen to music. I would love to be able to say that I could afford to spa all day, every day, and all the things. I mean, there's something to be said for taking yourself and getting some self-care that way, but just finding something that you really enjoy, that
Mm,
you don't mind doing on your own.
sure.
I love hanging out with friends, but I mean, all my friends really are in St. Louis. I haven't we've only been in Kansas City since April.
Oh, okay.
So, living in St. Louis all our lives, moving to South Carolina, made some great friends there, but obviously that's a long way away. So
Yeah.
we've been here since April. I have a few people that I've, but I don't have a lot of friends here. But so when I say you need to find something that you can do on your own, like I don't need to call somebody to go take myself to brunch. I'm one of those people that can pretty much go anywhere. And I guess what? I make friends while I'm there.
Sure. You're a very bubbly person, so I can't see why you wouldn't make friends anywhere anyway.
Oh, don't Kevin hates going to the airport with me.
Because you're making friends everywhere?
I like people's stories.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I like to hear all kinds of stuff. So we'll be at the airport bar and I'll get the person next to me's full life story. And Kevin's like, oh my God.
That's
But
awesome.
I mean, find something that
Find
you
something.
enjoy that you don't mind doing by yourself. Because I mean, in the reality of it, if you're married to a firefighter, they're gone 24, 48 shift, that shift
Sure.
work overtime. And you need to be able to find something to
I
relax.
like that you put in here, self-care isn't selfish.
Yes,
That's super important.
it
You're
is.
right. It's not selfish. As a spouse, you need to make sure you're taking care of yourself. It's a stressful job, what you
Yeah.
guys do.
Yeah.
Absolutely 100%.
Yeah. And women, especially moms, in general, tend to put everybody else before
Yes, they do.
them. And I get it, but you're not doing anybody any good if you're not
Mhm.
100%.
You're
It's
absolutely right.
the theory of the airplane when they say make sure you put your mask on before you put the other mask on your child or whoever else is next to you. Like it's a thing. Like you need to take care of yourself first.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to do anybody any.
100% accurate. Absolutely. Yeah, and the husband or spouse coming home, whether your husband or wife that's the one coming home or you're at home, if you're already in a pissy mood and they're in a pissy mood, everyone's just going to clash,
Oh,
and then the stress
and we
levels
have
are
been
already
there,
up,
done that.
right?
It is not fun.
There's been times I'm like, man, I should just go back to the station because I don't want to be here for this right now.
Yeah. No, that's never fun.
No, it's not.
But
And then you don't want to go. You don't want to go
yeah,
back to shift
yeah,
or
yeah.
pissed off still because now you had a pissy time at home. So it's definitely tough. Well, Tracy, do you have anything else you wanted to bring up? Is now for Kevin, does he has better days now, right? Like, does he
Oh,
ever kind of does anything
yeah.
trigger him back to days? Is it is it
I will
now that he
say
found a good place?
I was very worried about him because he is so passionate about the fire service and he really I mean, I was really worried that even though this is a fire related change, I was just afraid he wasn't going to be as fulfilled. And he does, I mean, we had a conversation. He started last December at Key. So he's been there almost a year. And I would say when we moved here in April, I said, how are you doing? Like tell me how you're doing because that's a shift. It's still fire related, but
Yeah,
that's not what you've been doing for the last 21 years. Yeah, you get to, mess with the nozzles and the hose all day, and hang out at the fire stations, but that's not like what you were doing. And he said that he misses the fire. Obviously, you always gotta, that fire,
yeah,
but he doesn't miss the, 100 EMS calls. He doesn't.
yeah.
He
I don't think
doesn't
anybody
miss.
misses that.
Yeah, he doesn't. The fire alarm sounding at the local restaurant. He
Yeah.
doesn't. He was very honest with me. He said he misses the fire and the camaraderie at the station with the guys, but there were so many other things that he didn't miss that it
Hmm.
definitely outweighed. So I was happy to hear that,
That's good.
he was, and he really is, he's really good at his job. I listened to him on the phone talking about combat ready and all the things. And I'm like, okay, like he's really into it.
I
So
really enjoyed talking to him when I was at County Fire Tactics. I had learned a lot, and it
he's so
was
smart.
the dude is smart, and I could tell he's passionate about it. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
you don't lose that passion.
No.
It's the fact that you're still in the business, and you get to meet all these different people from all over the world
Yeah.
talking about the product, and he talks about it so well, and man, it was just icing on the cake when I saw you guys' article. I'm like, oh, I already know this guy, Kevin. I'm so happy that it's you. So this is great. So I really appreciate everything that you guys are doing and what you're bringing to the table. Like I said, this is really important. It happens to more people than we know. The biggest thing is actually talking about it. I
Yeah.
think honestly for organizational betrayal, because it is kind of taboo as still, I think, and
Yeah,
that
it
people
is.
think it's just right. And I think it's taboo because you get labeled as disgruntled or as a complainer,
Yeah.
and it's not really that.
Yeah.
Some of the situations are very extreme and some of them are not. From my personal experience, I honestly say they're more on the extreme level for the organizational betrayal. From my experience, I was pretty much ostracized from my department once I left because I had made a post about being able to freely speak about what happened to me, and
Yeah.
I feel free now. I was actually booted from my association because I spoke freely about it, and that really hurt a lot. But I know that I was doing the right thing, and I know I'm still doing the right thing. That anybody out there, you're not alone dealing with these problems. Please read Kathy Edwards and Tracy McCart's article. You can find it in Firefighter Nation. It's a wonderful article. It's not a long read, which is
Yeah.
fantastic for
Yeah.
us. We have a very short attention span. If you've got like 3 to
Which
5
was
minutes,
why we made it short in the
yeah,
first place, and they
I
told us
printed
to
it
add
out.
on. So
It was 5 pages. When like actually like 2 of the pages is us just ads, so you didn't even
yeah,
need those.
yes, yeah, they're good about
So
that.
it's a fantastic article. It's right to the point, and I love it. I immediately told my wife about it, and then I just once I started this podcast, I knew I had to get you guys on here because that is my big passion. That's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, is really just to get word out there about mental health and to be able to understand, let other people know that you're not alone. If you need to talk to me, I'm an open book. You can reach out to me on social media. I'd be glad to talk to anybody that needs it or a direction to give them. Tracy, do you have any kind of resource or information to give
Yeah,
people that are struggling?
any wives that feel like they need some support, some girl time, some just anything,
Yeah.
where Kathy and I are available. You can find us at Firewife Life LLC on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, firewifelife.org. Yeah, I just think it's very important for the wives and the families to have the resources and support that they so desperately need, and in turn, that will just help the firefighter. So,
I love it. Absolutely. And as you talked about as well, please, if you can, look into fire conferences, County Fire
yep.
Tactics. Kurt Isaacson runs that. He does a fantastic job. You get to go to Pensacola, Florida, live the beach life for a week. And he has a great time with the spouses. The spouses,
Yeah.
I mean, you get to just
Yep.
hang out at the beach and hang out with other wives, and you can talk whatever you want to talk about and drink
Yep.
cocktails and
Right.
go shopping. Or, if you want to see what the guys are doing or what the job entails, you can actually watch them do
Yeah,
some of
you
those
can.
things as well, which I think is fantastic. There's activities that they have going on nightly. I strongly encourage it. I'm trying to get my wife to go down there one year. We'll
Yeah.
see if it ever happens.
Speaking of, we'll be at firemanship.
Oh,
So
nice.
Kathy and I were invited back to firemanship.
That's great.
We did the spouse track. We did a 3-day spouse track last year at firemanship, and then we will be back.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So
I'm hoping to go to that. There's a lot of conferences I'm hoping to go to, but time and money, and money
I
is
know.
time. So it does get difficult.
I
And I
hear
also
you.
know Bears of the Oath as well. Shane Bentley, I've been promoting him because what he does is fantastic. Down in Georgia, Bears of the Oath, they also do family tracks as well. He
Yeah.
definitely promotes family, and he wants wives to come down. They have a lot of good things that they do, and a lot of tracks that help with spouses and fire life. Same thing with the Dagum conference that Kevin Pfluger puts on. He makes sure that family is first. I think for all of us, the conferences that we go to really is the message is family is first.
Yes.
Without our family, we're nothing. And I love the fact that these conferences that we go to, that's what they want us to do. They want to
They
bring
really
our
are
kids and
starting
our
to.
wives, and I think it's super important to have that. And I know, again, sometimes the prices get the better of us.
Yeah.
You can reach out to a lot of people who put on these conferences. If you're financially struggling,
Mhm.
reach out to them, and they can hopefully help you out with some of the aspects of it, because they want to see you down there. They want to see you enjoying yourselves and getting that break. And if you're really struggling mentally and you need to get away, bring your spouse down, and you'll feel refreshed and rejuvenated. And like your story, you Tracy, you and Kathy, that you went down to a fire conference and met each other and
Yeah.
became best friends.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
and you come out with
Little plug, if you don't
yeah.
mind.
Oh,
A
I'd
little
love to.
plug.
Yeah.
I almost forgot. Kathy, kill me. So I had mentioned that we try and do two big events a year. We kind of branched into, normally it's just wives. Normally it's like a wives retreat. We branched into couples last November, and we had our first couples retreat in Atlanta last year, and it turned out great. So this year, well, 25. In March of 25, we are doing our second annual couples retreat. We
Oh.
have some therapists. We've got Amanda and Corley Moore are
Oh,
our
excellent.
keynote. Yeah, so that'll be in the St. Louis area, which is good and central. That will be in March. I think it's the weekend after St. Pat's.
All
So
right.
you can find more info on our Facebook and website, but we're limiting it to 25 couples.
Okay.
And we're about half full. So,
Okay.
but yeah, it's kind of a neat rejuvenation for the couples. We do some communication stuff. Very interactive.
I
So
love it. That's fantastic.
yeah,
And speaking
yeah,
about the Moors as well, I know
yep,
Amanda wrote a book.
yep,
Was it Broken Pieces?
yep. The, uh, broken tools, or
Broken
hold on,
Tools.
I have it's sitting
That's
right
right,
over
sitting
on
right
my
there.
coffee table and I can't see it. We
I
actually
haven't.
did a Zoom about it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so they'll be there promoting the book a little bit. We did Firewife Life did a Zoom over the book, and Corley and Amanda were on. Yeah, they're gonna come kind of tell their story. It'll be awesome. So
Fantastic. I love
yeah.
it. I didn't know that it was actually going on, so that is really
Yep.
cool. So,
Yep.
Fire Wife Life on
Yep.
Facebook.
Yep.
It sounds like you got a lot of resources on there, so I think
We
is
do. We
wonderful.
do.
Good.
Yeah, pretty much anywhere you live, I have a contact.
Oh, good. That's fantastic. Wonderful. Again, it stinks that Kathy couldn't make it. I
I know.
hope
I
she
know.
gets better,
Me
but
too.
really thank you to you and Kathy. Also, thank you to Kevin and Todd for being so open about their struggles and
Mhm.
their history, and you guys being able to, all four of you, talk about it so openly. You guys obviously have great relationships,
We do.
and it shows. And I can't thank you enough for bringing it to the forefront. And hopefully we can continue to talk about it, and make sure that everyone's getting help that they need. Well, Tracy, thank you so much. You stay right there. I'm just going to make sure we end this.
Okay.
Thank you all for coming over, listening to the podcast. I appreciate all your support. Again, if you're ever struggling, please reach out. There's resources out there, and I love all of you. And Nozzle Tov, everybody.